Okay, so the next contact event. So this is contact event number 3. My first one being October of 1993. Second one being spring of 1995. This is my third contact event. Walnut Grove, October 1996, 19 years old. Spring of 1995, that second contact event, is technically right in the middle between October 1993 and spring and October 1996. It's a strange, like the placement is even, it has meaning. The beings seem to be very meaning focused and really make things symbolic and have meaning. And that was very meaningful that they kind of came in right in the middle between those two time periods. So I find that a neat feature. The location of this contact event. So this was Mundy Park. That's where I had lived, where I had the last contact event. I actually moved. My family moved to Westwood Plateau, so I'm actually up the hill here from the picture. But I worked somewhere around here at a warehouse job, and I would every night when I was at this age, I would take the highway and go to my girlfriend's place in Walnut Grove. I'd spend the night or like hang out there until 9 or 10, and I would drive back home every night, coming along the road, coming up the highway, and then back home. My life was exhausting. I was working in a warehouse. I didn't like my job. I was in a band. I was playing music. My band was doing kind of fairly well. We were playing in clubs. It was lots of fun. But my life felt rudimentary and felt very boring. And I was being drained by my job and my girlfriend. My girlfriend we had already broken up once. And there was lots of tension and it was strained and I wasn't happy. And yeah, so we'll call her Samantha. So this here is, so let's just back up. That's Walnut Grove. There's a road here, 96th Avenue. That's it, 96 coming along this way. And so the contact event, I'm driving along and it ends up happening here. I'm just going to show a couple pictures though. That's that spot. You can actually see there's a bit more forested trees here on the left side of the road. The funny thing is this is a contact event right beside the highway. But there's actually a sound barrier that starts right here. And there's also a bunch of forested trees here that were here actually in the year 1996. This development wasn't here though. All that development wasn't here. None of that development was here. I actually think it was farmland. I can't quite recall if it was just forest or farmland, but it was definitely not houses. And that's the road. And you can see that there's trees there. And so the contact event technically happens right around here. So I'll back up a little. So what happens is I'm driving. As I turn the corner around here, I become the me that knows them. So they turn it on from a distance and boof, they're here. Like they're here. Oh my God. I'm excited. I can't believe it. And I can feel she's here. The elder's here. I can feel she's here. I can feel they're here. I can feel she's here. I'm so excited. I love these events. I love this contact event. I love this stuff. So I'm moving along, I'm driving along. And as I'm driving, I'm not certain what to do. I see I'm driving in on this lane here, coming down the road. As I'm driving, there's two tall beams on the side of the road. And I know to pull over. And so I pull over on the side. This bar wasn't here, by the way. So I pull over on the side of the road. And one of the beams comes out around the car and opens up the driver's side door, and we're connecting eyes, and then he fires off a telepathy to the other being saying, "This is the boy." And it's this kind of like traveling telepathy, or this feeling of this telepathy in the air as he's like speaking it to this other being, and he's calling me a boy. And I'm 19. I feel like I'm trying to be an adult, and they're still labeling me as a boy. So that contradiction was in my head, but nonetheless, I was so excited to be there, and we walked. We basically got out, and this wasn't as forested at the time, though I don't recall exactly. In my both hypnotic regressions, it was a clear cut, and then there was some forest off to the distance. I actually draw it what I saw, but there was a slope here. Now, I'm actually going to put this picture together here at this point. That what I'm trying to do now, because I got my second contact event, I actually was able to place the location or details about the location. I was again starting to test myself. How much could I get accurate about these locations that I've gone to? I haven't been to this spot in over 20 years. I couldn't even, you can't retain this memory. It just doesn't sit in your brain. I can't remember a detail that the road sloped in this way. So I remembered that I drew the slope, I drew a clear cut, and then I drew the trees. And we had walked deeper into the forest, and at some point we resumed up. But I got the slope right. And maybe you can say, oh, well, slope's no big deal. But I got the fact that there was a slope on the other side of the trees where the sound barrier came in. And this slope actually doesn't occur further down the road. It's a strange, who knows? But it was a neat fact for me. Again, for me, these are the things that keep showing to myself over and over and over and over again that these events are very real. And so what happened is the beings got me from the car. They walked down the slope, and we walked down together. And they were in front of me. I could feel that I was connected to these beings. That's the other part of this, is that I could feel, the story here is that I have their genetics in me, and I could feel it. I knew it. I could feel it, and I knew it. And it was part of this. I was wired up by it. We get to the location or some spot. I don't know. They seem to turn me around. We all kind of line up, and then we seem to be taken up. We are inside of a craft. We're inside of a space. I get familiar with the different ways I'm zoomed in and out of crafts. It seems to be the signature thing they do with me is take me very quickly somewhere. And so I get familiar with the different ways that they seem to zoom me in and out of crafts. And I'm on top of a transporter pad, or this kind of white, it seems soft. I can't even place it. It has a soft texture to it. Like it would almost slightly sink in a little bit. It's a strange feeling. And it's similar to my 16-year-old contact event. It seemed like the same style of transporter. This was larger though. It was like a large rectangular, maybe for something cargo. I have no idea. I don't understand it. We walked out. They basically led me, and there was a window to my left. It had something in it. Seemed medical related. There was a T intersection. And at the T intersection, we turned right, and eventually we made our way left. They told me to go into this room. These circles are tubes, and they had in them baby versions of them. So they were little fetuses. And I was a little bit disturbed, actually, about what I was witnessing. It was a disturbing sight. But I was very okay with being there. And they were seemed to be piping. So it seemed to be like a glass tube with a metal base, some kind of metal base, and then a tube came from that metal base, a black tube, and so that's what these are, these lines. And it all seemed to like kind of congregate in this weird corner here. It was like a central thing that seemed to be part of the wall, but it seemed to kind of jut out in this black machine type way, and the tubes all seemed to kind of come into that. I don't know, these fetuses were floating in a fluid, so I don't know if this managed the fluid, these pipes, I don't know. But there was a computer console, and there was a chair there as well too. There may have been some other desks, or maybe a desk here or something, but this was the gist of what I got. There was a doorway it was an arched doorway to the left, or sorry, in this spot here, and it opened up to a hallway, so I could see a room on the other side. So that's what this is. Like, you can just see a bit of a room or another doorway there. And I was waiting. I was actually kind of, my arms kind of behind me, like patiently waiting, and kind of politely waiting. And I did glance around and was like, oh, weird. And then I just kind of waited. And then I continued to wait. And then it was like, oh, this is really weird. What's going on? And, you know, they're very timely. But I could kind of like feel her. I was 19 at the time, and I had experienced some things with energy and stuff, but I wouldn't consider myself intuitive. Not at the time anyway. And I didn't feel like I had that type of intuition where I could feel something. But I could feel her, and it seemed like she wanted to bring that awareness to my mind. I could actually feel she was hanging out behind the wall, that she was, here I am looking at this door, and I really wanted to feel like she was right there. I was like, what's going on? And I could certain, the more it went on, I was like, she's right there. What's going on? She's right there. And I don't know if she was giving me a message or she was talking to me from the wall. I don't think she was. I'm pretty certain she was just bringing the awareness up to my mind. And that was it. Then she comes out from the right of the hallway, and she's like, hello, Jeff. And I was like, oh, and her sight just blew my brain. She is this, again, she's a chief spiritual energy amongst the wisdom and amongst this kind of power she holds. She holds some type of power, and I was enamored. I'd forgotten almost how intense this energy was, and it almost like she opened up the white room in me, the elation, the joy. I was in love, and I was like, oh my god, this is oh my god, this experience is crazy, and I think this being is amazing. I was really taken aback, and she just sat there straight. Right, there's all these different ways they behave themselves. The other being talked with his hands. She sits straight, she's like straight laced, straight arms down the side, but she's this sense that she's kind of psychically doing something. She was like like hugging me as if she would hug me psychically, and there was this feeling of her wrapping around her her energy around me, and I felt like I was bonding with this being, like it was this. And it's, it stuck to my memory because I'm bonding with an alien, right? Like it's a social event with an alien. Like it hits your brain differently than it would with anybody else. And so it was clear to me that we were bonding. Now I mentioned the dual soul connection here because I actually really wish someone else could tell me this. I don't know the answer to this, but I can feel what she feels, and because I'm bonded to her in this dual soul way. She's my dual soul. When I've seen other people talk about dual souls, they don't talk about another living being the dual soul. They talk about this experience they have inside themselves, that they themselves have a kind of a consciousness part that is an alien inside them. But for me, that was part of the agreement or part of the experiment in this afterlife vision I had. Well, that sounds so crazy to say, but the truth is that that was part of the experiment, that she's a living being and she's my dual soul. So I feel what she feels. And so I felt like I was bonding with her, and I was so excited, and I could feel her happy she was bonding with me. I could feel that she was excited to interact with me as equally as I was excited to interact with her. For her, she's like the human that I interact with. She loved this experiment. She loved the agreement. She loved what we were doing. She loved this adventure. It was an adventure for her as much as it was an adventure for me. And I like that alone breaks my brain. And but it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And I don't know if other people have those type of touchy-feely events. It's very feely. As you'll see, even in this interaction, I can feel what she's saying and why, and I get feeling from her about what's going on. So as humans, we say, hello, how are you? My experience with these beings is they literally find out for themselves how you're doing. They don't mince with surface talk. And so she wants to know how I'm doing. So she comes right in. I get right into her eyes, and she psychically probes me, and she kind of learns what's going on in my life and my world. She felt my pain. She felt the problems I was having with my wife. Oh, sorry, having with my, she wasn't my wife, having with my girlfriend at the time. And she pulled out that pain, and I was fighting back tears. And she could feel I was finding my life hard. And I felt psychic waves of caressing. Then she was trying to care. Like she was like, this, like, oh, like she didn't want me to be in pain. It was the feeling. She cared for my emotional well-being. And she says, my friend, let go. You have to let go of what you know is causing you pain. Don't have fear about what you know you have to do. I was observing my thoughts, like, oh my God, I have to make a life choice. Like, then it was like clear, like, right, this is like, I have to listen to this is guidance from something that understands how to observe me from the inside. And I realized I had to make this choice. And then she observed me making that thought. She's like, yes, it will be hard, but it will be for the better. It ends there, that section. I was like, oh, then she's like, okay, we have to keep moving. She was trying to be timely, actually, and there was a sense of that. So she takes me over to the tubes against the wall behind me. And they were floating. Their eyes were open. There was no umbilical cord. And she says, this is how our kind is made. And she lifts up her hand as she does it. She's kind of showing me in this way. And I could feel, for this being, these were children for her. And she had motherly love for these beings. For me, as a human, these were disturbing. They looked like a science teacher keeping a dead animal and formaldehyde in your science lab. This was weird and odd. And the fact that their eyes were open, everything was just blah. It had a weird blah to it. But the fact that she loved these beings, like how a human would love children, like you would maybe see children on the road and you have this kind of community feeling, like these are children of our community or of our future, and we need to care for these children, and I love those children. Like a sense how you would have that kind of community feeling. She had that for these children, that these weren't her children. I understood that these weren't her children. These were the children. These were the children that would belong to her race, and she loved them for that reason. And she goes on to explain, we are genetic manipulators, and the bodies in these tubes will have specific genetic purposes for the role each will play in our world. I could see their method of species creation was controlled, or like, you know, they don't, when they build their bodies, like humans are just products of our births. We just kind of birth and kind of keep birthing and generations get created. They seemed very controlled what they were doing, but they would build the body and they would have a purpose. That body, the genetic purpose of that body would play a role. And yeah, she goes into more detail here. Kind of out of nowhere, she says, and we've also made the human bodies for your earth, for your souls to live in. And we did this a long time ago in an ancient era. And when she said that, I didn't have any more detail. She gave me an impression that she was speaking of tens of thousands of years ago. I can't speak for hundreds of thousands of years ago. I know humans pop up, Homo sapiens. They say that the latest is 100, or latest is 120,000 years ago. But this idea that she was talking about tens of thousands of years ago that they maybe interacted with, or who knows. Anyway, we are engineers for ways of living for souls, lifestyle engineers, how life manifests in perception and spiritual connection in biology. We understand how biology manifests specific aspects of souls, so souls can go into certain bodies when they seek those type of experiences. We are the highest type of life engineers. We are called upon by and work with collective spiritual governing bodies to form agreements to create physical bodies for nation-faring planets and dimensional lands. This is what we have done with your homeworld. So as I digest that presently, in essence, what's clear to me is the brilliance of these beings lies in their full understanding of spiritual dimensionality. It's a given, right? I had this experience in the White Room. They are in the afterlife realm, whatever that realm is, whatever the real word or name for that realm is, but they're there. So they clearly, and they're building on the back end they're spiritual masters. They're unfounded in probably planet Earth, what this type of stuff is. And then they're also biologists, which is well documented that they're very interested in genetics and they're very interested in biology. And they have this brilliance of the two and how they both merge, how a spirit can experience what experiences in the body. So they accentuate certain aspects of biological forms to express specific spiritual consciousness perceptions and or abilities. So I say that maybe in extreme cases, if they were trying to create, this is how I understand it, if they're trying to create a telekinesis being, a being who can move things, objects with their mind, they would know how to do that. They would create certain things in the biology that allowed the being to express itself in that way. So that's what it is. It's these, maybe not just powers, but also just perceptions. So what the being perceives. The fact is that clearly there's realms going on here that we can't see. And maybe that's what this kind of stuff is that they created a blocking of perception. So humans experience one type of realm of experience, and the soul likes that. The soul goes into the body of wanting that type of experience. So we're incarnating for that reason. And there may be other bodies that can perceive other dimensions. They have the tools to do that. And they seem to be the tool makers, allowing bodies to experience different types of consciousness experiences and different types of spiritual experiences. And of course, the human body is simply one of their many products. In some ways, this makes them detached. I think that's a lot of information, but it was also obvious to me that if these beings think this way, then they actually kind of are detached from the physical body. Then they really don't. And there's high spirituality, like the Vedic stuff that I kind of study, does focus on having a detachment from the body, focusing on the spirit as a truth, and that the body is an experience that we're having, and that it's not to speak negatively of the body. It's that to recognize who and what you actually are first, and then to recognize the role that the body is meant to have. And it seemed to me that that matched, that these beings live that. They're not just, this isn't just a philosophy for them. This is their life. This is exactly how they perceive their world. And so they see the living experience as all about the soul and the experience that the soul can gain within that particular body in that particular point in time. And she says, our bodies are like your invertebrates, and we plant our seeds into, so okay, I don't know why she says that first part. That's a strange thing to mention. I never understand it. It's just, she seems to throw in there that our bodies are like your invertebrates, and we plant our seeds into human mothers' wombs to make the fetuses grow to be like us. We do this to bring humanity to a galactic level, so humans can be part of the galactic society. Then it comes, oh, right. So when she says that, the action of putting their genetics into humans' mothers' wombs, into fetuses, I felt that the Mayan calendar. So we talked about the Mayan calendar. I felt that moment again. I didn't know it was a Mayan calendar as a teenager, but I remembered that she'd showed me that, and I felt like there was a connection being drawn here. When she said this, I had the distinct feeling of the Mayan calendar looking cog that she showed me several years ago. Like they were doing this because of the era that we are in, that humans are in. Possibly this was what she meant when she said they are humanity's agents of change, a change facilitated by inserting their genetics into human fetuses. I understood their genetics was fused with something. It's something dimensional or spiritual, and that is higher, that it's spiritually or dimensionally higher, and that this part of them in humans helped humanity evolve in consciousness. Yeah, for me, it's obvious because these beings are who they are, that they have something in their genetics that does move us along, that does help us, that does allow us to accept a new reality, accept a new perception, maybe a new spiritual perception and a new altered reality. And then she brings it back to me. This is what you are. You feel your connection with us because you are one of us. And so she's referring, at least I feel, she's referring to the fact that she hung out outside the door and I could feel her. And so she was purposely bringing that connection to my consciousness, to my frontal awareness. And you are biologically unique to raise the type of soul that you are. So yeah, so when she starts talking about me again, I just like don't know what to take of it. So I'm loving being here with her and loving this experience, but I don't know what to make of it. And then she's like, don't worry, it'll be revealed to you in the future. A time is about to come where we will work closely. She's referring to basically from this point onwards, the future contact events really do pick up. You will rise to make your event happen. So that's actually going to happen a year from this moment, called the rising. So this is one of their moments where they're actually referring to the event as the rising. Right? So you will rise to make your event happen. I can feel it's the end. I'm like, thank you. I'm grateful for being there. That's it. It's time to leave. There's no goodbyes. There's no, of all my entire contact events, I think I actually have one kind of formal goodbye. It's actually the last time I see her before many years pass. There's no goodbyes. There's never like, oh, good to see you again. It's never emotional. It doesn't carry any of those type of feelings. It's always like, okay, we're done. Go. And so that's what this feeling was. It was time to go. Okay, go. The two medical beings are waiting outside. I actually kind of I get with them. We walk. They direct me to the platform again, and I go back. And I go back to the forest. I'm back down by myself. I see the car. I get back in the car, and as I'm driving and I'm going around the corner, as it starts going into the on-ramp onto the, not on the on-ramp, but as I go into the area where the on-ramp would be, my memory of who I am, my 19-year-old self, comes back, and 19-year-old self. And I think that I had I'd fallen asleep at the car. And so I keep the windows rolled down. So that's that contact event. I have some things to say about it, just in general about why it occurred and what it was all about. I remember this night. So I actually, again, I start journaling. Breaking up with my girlfriend Samantha started me. It's a strange thing, and maybe all teenagers were like this. I have no idea. But I broke up with my girlfriend to become more spiritual. It was actually the thing. It's a strange, like now that I really see this larger picture, it's so crazy. And but I broke up with her to become more spiritual, and I journaled. I picked up a journal to start documenting my dreams, and but also to start documenting my synchronicities. I was inspired by Carl Jung at the time, and Carl Jung treated himself as like a thing to study, as a scientific observation. Brian, we've talked about this, his book Memories, Dreams, and Reflections. He really does treat that method, that kind of self-analytical spiritual experiences, though, right? He was really having synchronicities, and he was exploring archetypes in his own subconscious, and I loved that. I wanted to understand myself with that type of depth. So I as soon as I broke up with her, I became enticed to get a journal and start journaling my life, and specifically the spiritual experiences I was having. And so the act of breaking up with my girlfriend, though, was inspired in my conscious mind by a night that I drove home. And I'd always remembered this because I journaled it. I drove home, and I was in bed. I was like exhausted from work, and I just straight from the car, basically brush my teeth and go to bed. We get up the next morning and go to work. And I had a glow in my heart. I had a feeling in my heart that I really just couldn't place, but I wasn't self-reflective as the way I am now. I just felt good. But it was in contrast to everything else in my life. It was in contrast to my exhaustion. It was in contrast to how I was feeling in my daily life. But we're in that moment, this gold, this glow in my heart. And I just went click, click, click. I need my external life to feel like this internal feeling. I need this to match, and I need to make the decision, and I need to make it now. So it was, I now know it was this event. I got these glowy heart feelings after I would interact with these beings. So this is what it was. So it's kind of funny in some ways. The beings helped me break up with my girlfriend, or at least they broke me up with my girlfriend. So it really impacted me, and it seemed to move my life forward and onwards. The feeling of this interaction was loving, but biologically weird. I just kind of wanted to create a general feeling about what this interaction was for me. It was a strange feeling. There was a kind of body Frankenstein kind of feel, putting, cross-mixing and fertilizing biology to create babies and bodies to get specific results. It's a strange human feeling, but for them, this is their world. This is natural for them. And it's because they're so weirdly, oddly interested in biology. It's because they're spirit beings first. They know themselves as consciousness first, and then this is a whole aspect of their lives. They don't see it the way we see it. They don't see humans are attached to their physical bodies, and they're disturbed by these physical things, and this is their world, and they don't see it that way. Why did I have this contact event? Because it's obvious to me they were starting to build me up. I'll have 4 more contact events before the rising in December of 1997. And it's clear to me that they were building me up. They were giving me stuff here, here, here. So at this point, they were trying to get me comfortable with my identity. So my identity for them is one of theirs. And so I would be comfortable and very okay in working with these beings. So that's clearly what this is all about for me, and also giving me understanding a bit about their role. Lastly, this might be a moot, I don't know. UFOBC.ca had so it's a database of UFO sightings in British Columbia. The database is invaluable, and I for all my contact events, I actually went every single one. I scoured the database looking for anything that matched, anything. I find it really strange, actually, but triangle crafts plenty of them have been sighted in the Lower Mainland, large triangular crafts. So these large crafts are actually sighted in the area. And there is one close, possibly similar to the day that I had my contact event. It's in the database as October 1996. My contact event, I know 100% occurred in October 1996. And it's 20 kilometers south of where my contact event happened. And it's strange because 20 kilometers south of Walnut Grove is basically the border. It's I think it's Cloverdale, literally like beeline direct. and it was moving north, and it was in October of 1996 that this triangle craft was seen, in a very low, slow moving triangle craft. Of all the experiences I ever have with these beings, when you're in a craft that has hallways, it's a large craft. So because I'm often in other crafts with rooms, and the rooms are really tight, and I get the impression it's a dome craft, or kind of a shaped craft that could be 100 feet long or 150 feet long. But when there's hallways, it's a large craft. And this one had hallways. Again, I never saw the craft, so I can never actually distinctly say what type of craft I was in or what it was. But it was obviously a large craft. And I know the triangle crafts are large crafts. The bottom line being is that these large crafts are in this area, and it's incomprehensible. I can tell you, everyone in my sphere probably wouldn't believe that they get witnessed, but they do. They get witnessed in the Lower Mainland. So it's so that's a neat connection. Again, I can't 100% say anything because I never saw the craft I was in, but I do know it was a large craft, and so yeah, it's a fun piece to kind of, who knows, right?